Hey everyone, welcome back. Today we're diving deep into something I know a lot of you have been asking about: the psychology of happiness. Especially in 2025, right? With all the AI and social media, it sometimes feels like happiness is harder to find than ever. But we're going to try and figure it all out today. We've got a chapter here from The Psychology of Happiness, Finding Joy in Everyday Life, the 2025 edition. So no better place to start, I guess.
Definitely not. And, right away the chapter jumps into this idea that there are actually two different types of happiness: hedonic and eudaimonic.
Okay, I've heard of those before, but could you break them down for us?
Yeah, totally. So hedonic happiness, that's like your instant gratification, pure pleasure stuff. Like think about eating a big slice of cake or, finally beating that level on the video game you've been stuck on.
Okay, those quick hits of joy.
Exactly. But then there's eudaimonic happiness. This one's more about long-term fulfillment, feeling like your life has meaning, like you're growing as a person. It comes from things like strong relationships or working towards goals that really matter to you. So it's less about those fleeting moments and more about that deep sense of purpose.
Exactly.
And even in our crazy tech-filled world, both types of happiness still matter, right?
Oh, absolutely.
But the chapter talks about this happiness paradox of 2025, this idea that we have more potential for happiness than ever before, but it can also feel way harder to actually achieve it. What are your thoughts on that?
Well, the chapter points out that one of the big culprits here is social media.
Oh, yeah.
It's that constant pressure to present this perfect life online.
Yeah.
We're bombarded with everyone else's highlight reels, and it's easy to start comparing ourselves and feeling inadequate.
Ugh, tell me about it. Just yesterday, I was scrolling through vacation photos and feeling like everyone's living it up except me.
It's so relatable,
Yeah.
and it makes you realize how easy it is to get caught up in that trap of external validation. Like our happiness becomes tied to likes and followers instead of genuine fulfillment.
It's like we're chasing something that's ultimately empty. And then there's the whole AI and automation thing, which is kind of a double-edged sword, right?
Yeah, I mean, on one hand, it can free up our time to pursue things we actually enjoy.
You're right.
But on the other hand, the chapter brings up how it can lead to a sense of purposelessness, especially if AI is taking over jobs that people used to find meaningful.
So we might gain more leisure time, but lose that deep sense of purpose that comes from contributing to the world.
Precisely.
Mm.
And that directly impacts our eudaimonic happiness, that long-term fulfillment we were talking about earlier.
So how do we break free from this paradox? The chapter seems to hint at it being all about shifting our focus inward.
That's exactly it. Instead of seeking validation from external sources like those likes, followers, or even material possessions, it's about cultivating internal fulfillment, practicing gratitude, being more mindful, and focusing on building genuine connections.
Those are definitely buzzwords these days, but how do we actually apply them in a world that feels increasingly digital?
That's a great question. And luckily, the chapter gets really practical with some tangible tips for 2025.
Okay, I'm all ears.
So, for example, with gratitude, it suggests taking it beyond just those mental lists.
Mm.
Like what if you recorded short videos or voice memos expressing what you're grateful for?
I love that.
Right.
It's like a multimedia gratitude journal. It's more personal,
Exactly.
and it kind of forces you to be more present in the moment.
Totally. And speaking of being more present, the chapter also talks a lot about using technology mindfully. Instead of getting sucked into endless scrolling, what if we intentionally used AI for self-improvement? Like those incredible apps for VR meditation or AI-guided therapy.
Right. So instead of letting tech control us, we use it to support our well-being.
Exactly. It's about being intentional and making choices that align with our happiness goals.
Okay, I'm totally on board with that. But with so much of life happening online these days, it can be tough to prioritize those real-world connections. How do we make sure we're not just stuck in the digital realm?
It's definitely more challenging, but the chapter makes it clear relationships are still the key to lasting joy. And it's not about having hundreds of online friends. It's about nurturing those 5 to 10 deep connections.
That inner circle.
Exactly. Those are the people you can have deep conversations with, share your struggles and triumphs with. The people who really get you.
So quality over quantity wins again.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And even if you can't always meet up in person, the chapter even mentions that regular video calls with those close friends and family can do wonders for your happiness.
So it's not just about cutting out technology completely. It's about using it in ways that enhance those real connections.
Exactly. It's all about finding that balance.
Okay, I'm making a mental note to schedule those calls, but there's one more big question I have to ask. Can money buy happiness? Does the chapter even touch upon that?
Oh, it does.
Yeah.
And unsurprisingly, it's a bit more nuanced than a simple yes or no.
Figured as much.
Right. So while financial stability definitely reduces stress, which is super important, the chapter emphasizes that it's actually experiences, not possessions, that lead to more lasting joy.
It's that whole experience economy thing everyone's talking about, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Like people are prioritizing travel, unique dining experiences, learning new skills.
Yeah, it's less about stuff and more about those memory-making adventures.
Okay, so I'm going to meet some concrete examples.
All right, well, imagine choosing a mind-blowing VR travel experience over buying the latest gadget.
Ooh, I like the sound of that.
Right. It's about investing in experiences that broaden your horizons and create lasting memories.
Totally. But speaking of investing, does the chapter offer any guidance on how to manage our finances in a way that aligns with happiness?
It does. It introduces this concept called the happiness budget rule.
Okay, I'm intrigued. Tell me more.
It's pretty simple, really. You divide your budget into 3 categories.
Yeah.
50% goes toward your essential needs, rent, groceries, all that.
Got it.
Then 30% is allocated for experiences, those memory-making adventures we were just talking about.
All right, so far so good.
And finally, the last 20% is dedicated to future growth. Things like investments, savings, or even learning new skills.
It's like a holistic approach to financial well-being, prioritizing both the present and the future.
Exactly. It's a framework for making financial decisions that actually support your happiness goals.
I'm definitely adding that to my financial toolkit. But there's one more piece of the puzzle we haven't touched upon yet. Finding your purpose. That seems like a pretty crucial element of happiness, wouldn't you say?
Oh, absolutely. The chapter dives deep into that, emphasizing how powerful purpose-driven happiness can be.
And in 2025, it seems like more and more people are changing careers or launching passion projects, often with the help of AI to explore new fields.
It's true. People are realizing that work doesn't have to just be a means to an end. It can be a source of deep fulfillment.
Right, like it can actually align with your values and make a real difference in the world.
Exactly. And there's this great anecdote in the chapter about a woman who left her high-paying corporate job to start a podcast about, wait for it, Ethiopian moms.
Wow, that's quite a shift.
Right. But she found so much more joy in storytelling and connecting with her community.
That's so inspiring. It shows how powerful it can be to align your work with your passions.
Totally. And to help us figure out our own purpose, the chapter leaves us with this thought-provoking question. What problem do you love solving?
That's a good one.
Right. It encourages us to think about what truly lights us up, what we're naturally drawn to.
And maybe that's a clue to our own unique purpose.
Exactly.
Wow, this has been such a fascinating conversation. We've covered so much ground already, from those 2 types of happiness to the challenges of social media and the power of finding your purpose.
And we've only just scratched the surface.
That's right. We still have a lot more to unpack. But before we move on, let's quickly recap the key takeaways from this first part of our deep dive.
Sounds good. So we started by exploring the difference between hedonic and eudaimonic happiness, those short bursts of pleasure versus that long-term fulfillment.
And we talked about how the happiness paradox of 2025 makes it both easier and harder to find happiness.
We discussed the pitfalls of social media comparison, the potential downsides of AI, but also the incredible opportunities technology offers for enhancing our well-being.
And we explored some practical strategies for cultivating happiness, like practicing gratitude in a digital world, being more mindful with our tech use, and prioritizing those meaningful connections.
And we ended on this inspiring note of finding our purpose, aligning our work with our values, and making a real difference in the world.
Powerful stuff.
Definitely. And in the next part of our deep dive, we'll be taking a closer look at the role of mindset and exploring some future trends that are shaping the landscape of happiness in 2025 and beyond.
I can't wait to dive deeper. But for now, we'll leave you with that thought-provoking question. What problem do you love solving? Let it simmer, and we'll see you back here soon for part 2.
See you then. Welcome back to our deep dive on happiness in 2025. We've been talking about this chapter from the psychology of happiness, and, we've covered a lot of ground already.
Yeah, for sure. From mindful tech use to that happiness budget rule.
Yeah.
But I feel like there's a piece missing.
Oh.
We haven't really talked about mindset.
Ah, right.
It's like, we can have all these tools and habits, but if your mindset's not there, can we really be happy?
You're so right. And you know what? The chapter actually dedicates a whole section to this. Cultivating a happiness mindset, they call it.
Okay, I'm curious. What does that even mean?
Well, it's all about the idea that our thoughts and perceptions, like our internal world, play a huge role in our overall well-being.
So even if we have everything else figured out,
Our mindset can still make or break our happiness.
okay,
Exactly.
so what are the key ingredients of this happiness mindset?
Well, mindfulness is a big one.
Mindfulness, right.
Yep.
It's everywhere these days.
It is. But the chapter talks about it in a specific way. It's about, being present, noticing your thoughts and feelings without judgment.
Okay, not dwelling on the past or worrying about the future, but being here now.
Exactly. And they talk about how mindfulness can help us really savor positive experiences.
So instead of those happy moments just slipping by,
We actually train ourselves to be present and appreciate them.
and that leads to feeling more joy, more content.
Exactly. It's about amplifying those good feelings.
I love that. But what about the, not so good times?
Ah, right. When those negative thoughts creep in.
Yeah. How do we keep a happiness mindset when we're feeling down, anxious, all of that?
Well, that's where cognitive reframing comes in.
Cognitive what now?
Reframing is basically challenging those negative thoughts, like consciously choosing to see them in a different light.
So instead of, I'm never going to finish this project,
You might say, okay, this is a lot, but I can prioritize and break it down into smaller steps.
that's a much better feeling. Less overwhelming.
Exactly. And the more you practice this, the more you build those positive neural pathways in your brain.
It's like rewiring your brain for happiness.
Exactly. But sometimes it's not just about thoughts, right? It's those deeper feelings.
Like self-doubt.
Yeah. Or feeling like you're not good enough. And the chapter brings up self-compassion for that.
Which is,
Treating yourself with kindness, like you would a friend.
yeah,
You mess up. You offer yourself support instead of beating yourself up.
especially in 2025 with all the pressure to be perfect.
It's huge. The chapter really emphasizes true happiness isn't about being perfect. It's about, embracing who you are.
And accepting that you're always growing, always learning.
Exactly.
Mm.
Which brings us to another key element, a growth mindset.
Oh, I've heard of that. But remind me.
So a growth mindset is believing that your abilities, your intelligence, it's not fixed. It can be developed.
Through effort, through learning.
Exactly. And the chapter says this is crucial in 2025.
Because everything's changing so fast.
Right, whether it's new technology or a shifting job market, a growth mindset helps you adapt and thrive.
And we have all these AI tools that can help us learn and grow too.
Right. The chapter really encourages us to embrace that, to step outside our comfort zones and never stop learning.
So mindfulness, reframing negativity, self-compassion, and a growth mindset. That's the recipe for the happiness mindset.
It's a good summary. It's about shaping our inner world, be more resilient, more positive.
And that lays the groundwork for lasting happiness, even in the face of challenges.
I think so. And it reminds me of this quote by the Dalai Lama. He said,
Oh, I love the Dalai Lama.
happiness is not something ready-made. It comes from your own actions.
So powerful. It really highlights that we have agency in our own happiness.
Yeah, it's a choice we make every single day. And in a world that can feel overwhelming, that's actually pretty empowering.
It is, and it leads us perfectly to the next part of our deep dive. We're going to explore some of the future trends and technologies that are shaping the landscape of happiness in 2025 and beyond.
It's going to be fascinating. You don't want to miss it.
And we're back for the final part of our happiness deep dive.
Still exploring happiness in 2025, right?
Right. And this time, we're looking ahead. What's on the horizon for happiness? What trends and technologies are shaping the future of, feeling good?
That's where this chapter gets really interesting. It highlights some pretty exciting developments, actually.
Okay, I'm ready for some mind-blowing stuff.
One trend that's gaining a lot of momentum is personalized well-being.
Personalized well-being. Sounds fancy.
It is kind of fancy. It's basically using technology and data to create happiness strategies that are tailored to, each individual person.
So instead of one-size-fits-all advice, it's more like custom-made happiness.
Exactly. Imagine an AI well-being coach.
An AI coach. Okay, I'm listening.
It would analyze your sleep, how much you move around, your mood swings, even your social media to see what's up.
Whoa, it's getting pretty personal.
Right. And then it suggests activities, resources, or even little nudges throughout the day to help you stay on track with your happiness goals.
It's like having a personal happiness assistant in your pocket.
Yeah, kinda.
So cool. What else is coming up in the future of happiness?
Well, another really interesting development is the rise of virtual happiness experiences.
Virtual happiness.
Think about virtual reality, the potential to basically transport you to different worlds, immerse you in experiences you might not otherwise have.
Okay, yeah, I can see where this is going. Instead of just like watching a nature documentary, you could put on a VR headset and actually feel like you're in the Amazon rainforest.
Exactly. And studies are showing these immersive experiences actually affect our mood.
Makes sense. Even if it's virtual, those experiences can still trigger feelings of joy, awe, all that good stuff.
Right. And it's not just limited to travel. Imagine virtual concerts, walks in nature, even historical landmarks, all from your living room.
Wow, it opens up so many possibilities, especially for people who might not be able to have those experiences in real life.
That's a really important point. It makes these experiences accessible to everyone.
And it's not just about fun and games, right? The chapter mentioned VR being used for therapy too.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. There are already VR applications for things like anxiety, phobias, even PTSD.
That's incredible. Like, you could face your fears in a safe, controlled environment.
Yeah, and with a therapist guiding you every step of the way.
Wow, it's amazing how technology can be used to improve our well-being, both mentally and physically.
It really is. And speaking of tech and well-being, the chapter also talks about how this convergence is changing the workplace.
The workplace. I feel like for so long, work has been the place where happiness goes to die.
Unfortunately, yeah, that's often been the case. But in 2025, we're seeing a shift. Companies are finally realizing that happy employees are more productive, more creative, more engaged.
So it benefits everyone. Happy employees, thriving business.
Right. It's a win-win.
So how are companies using technology to create happier workplaces?
Well, AI can help manage workload more effectively, so less burnout. And then there are virtual platforms for collaboration, which can boost that feeling of connection even when working remotely.
Right, because remote work is definitely here to stay.
It is. And a lot of companies are also offering things like personalized wellness programs or mindfulness classes.
It's great that companies are recognizing that employee well-being is actually important.
It's a huge shift.
It's almost like the lines between work and life are blurring, but in a good way.
I think that's a great way to put it. When we feel happy at work, it spills over into our personal lives and vice versa.
Makes sense. This has been such a fascinating look into the future of happiness. It's really inspiring to see how technology can create a world where joy and well-being are more accessible for everyone.
I agree. But the chapter also makes it clear that there are ethical concerns and potential downsides that come with all these new technologies.
Right, like what?
Well, data privacy is a big one. If we're using AI to track our moods and everything, we need to make sure that data is being used responsibly.
It's a lot of personal information.
It is. And then there's also the question of whether technology could become a crutch.
Like, could we become too reliant on these virtual experiences and AI interactions? What about real human connection?
Yeah, that's a valid concern.
Mm-hmm.
The chapter emphasizes that technology should enhance our well-being, not replace those core human needs.
Like connection, belonging, intimacy.
Exactly.
It's about balance.
It's always about balance.
Yeah.
We can't forget that ultimately spending time with loved ones, pursuing our passions, contributing to our communities, those are the cornerstones of a happy life.
It's so easy to get caught up in the shiny new tech and forget about the things that truly matter.
It is. Technology can be a great tool, but it's important to remember it's just that, a tool.
Not a replacement for real life.
Right.
Well, this has been an incredible deep dive into happiness in 2025.
It has. We've covered a lot of ground.
Yeah. From those two types of happiness to the challenges and opportunities of technology to the importance of mindset and personal growth, it feels like we've explored happiness from every angle.
We did.
But even with all the changes and advancements, it seems like the fundamentals of happiness remain the same.
They really do. It's about nurturing our relationships, finding purpose and meaning in our lives, being present and grateful for the little things.
And taking care of our mental and physical well-being.
Exactly.
And remember, happiness is a journey, not a destination.
Couldn't have said it better myself.
A huge thank you to everyone for joining us on this exploration of happiness.
It's been a pleasure.
I hope you learned some valuable insights along the way.
Me too.
We'll see you next time on The Deep Dive, where we'll continue to explore the fascinating world of knowledge and ideas.
Until then, stay curious and keep learning.
And of course, be happy.